Easiest thing to do is to enter this in your calculator and look at the graph. So we go to the y editor, enter our equation. So we get x squared plus 9x plus 20, enter. And now we can look at our graph. Again, we may need to adjust the graph a little bit. Here we see it fits into this window. I can narrow it down if I wanted to, but it fits in the default window, so we'll keep it just as it is. Anyway, what is the behavior of this graph? Is it opening up or down? We see it's opening up, and that means that the vertex is going to be what? A maximum or minimum? It's going to be a minimum. So let's find the vertex. So when we go to our calculators, we use which tab to find the vertex? The Math tab, F5. We look for the minimum, 3. And we choose a lower bound. Again, choose the far left. Easiest thing to do, a lower bound of -10 and an upper bound of +10. Again, anything to the left of this point would work. Anything to the right of this point would work. But we get our vertex to be -4.5 and -0.25. So there's our vertex. We can sketch that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, just over half, down just a little bit. I'm going to label my point below because I know it's opening up, and that reinforces that we're working up. And when you look at this, you can sketch your graph. Your line of symmetry is going to pass vertically right through that vertex. So what is our line of symmetry going to be? X equals what? X equals whatever the x-coordinate of our vertex was. So -4.5. And what is the y-intercept going to be? So this point up here, not necessarily to scale here. 20. You can tell that just by looking at your constant. So the point 0, 20, you need to label it as a set of coordinates. Okay, so 0, 20 is your y-intercept. Now, how might I find my x-intercepts? Any ideas? Could I find them on my graph? If I hit F5, okay. 1, if you choose your zeros are going to be your x-intercepts. However, you do need to distinguish the lower and upper bound for these. So if you're finding your zeros, you have 2 of them in this case. So here's 1, and here's a second. So you would, in this case, have to set your lower bound, let's say again, to -10. But this time your upper bound, you want to be to the left of this vertex, so you have to set your upper bound as the vertex x-coordinate. So you would set it as -4.5 as your upper bound, and that's going to give you this 0, -5, 0. Is that consistent with what we see here? Would this point be approximately -5, 0? Yeah, it's pretty consistent.
Does it matter if you choose -6
as far as?
for the x-intercept, as long as it's to the left?
No. It has to be an exact. There is a specific solution. Remember, the zeros, the x-intercepts, are where your equation is equal to 0. And that's going to be, I'm going to go through a second way to look at this. So if you're using your graph, what you're looking to do on here is you're finding the zeros. So let's find another one. So we found this left one. We now need to find the right one. So we go back to F5, Math tab, choose 0, which is number 2. This time our lower bound, we want now everything looking to the right of -4.5. So this time our lower bound is the vertex x-coordinate, -4.5. And our upper bound is anything to the right of that. So again, you can pick 10 as the easy upper bound. And now it gives you -4, 0. right here as your other solution. Okay, so you can use your graph for this. And that's one way to find your x-intercepts. If you're doing it this way, the advantage of it is you stay on your graph, the graphing form, this graphing window for the entire problem. Okay? The disadvantage is you have to do this step twice, and you have to understand that your upper or lower limit needs to be the vertex x coordinate. So if you don't understand that, there's another way that you can approach this. And the other way is set your original equation equal to 0 and solve. Okay, this is also going to give you these 2 points. So if you don't want to stay in the graph form and use this, what you can do is go back to your home screen, use the solve key, and you can take your equation as it was, x squared plus 9x plus 20, set it equal to 0 and solve for x. And if you do this, you'll get your 2 solutions, -5 and -4. And just put the zeros for the corresponding y coordinates. This tells you that the graph will pass through the x-axis at -5 and at -4. Okay, the last thing I'm going to ask you on the test is to find some other point beside these. So you'll have your vertex, you'll have your x-intercepts and your y-intercept. And if I ask you for one other point, again, from the graphing view, how can you find what one other point is?
Just pick one.
Yeah, pick one and plug it where?
Into your calculator.
Into the value. So all you need to do from the viewing the graph window is hit the Math tab F5, choose value, pick any number for x. Okay, pick a number that you haven't used already, and please pick an integer value that's within your viewing window. Most of them should be -10 to 10. But if you pick any number from -10 to 10 that you haven't used already, that would be ideal. So what's a number that we could choose here?
8.
Let's say you pick 8. If you chose 8, you just enter that here, and you get your corresponding 156. You're obviously not going to plot that here, but you can just locate that other point.